Hey, it's Raven Tactical here, and we're going to do recovery operations. I'm going to loosely base this off the military and kind of a civilian um, way of describing it. I'm going to break it down. Recovery operations for the military for Hotel 8 school is about a 2-week course. I'm going to break it down in about 10 or 15 minutes. This recovery is like if you were to ever get your vehicle stuck in mud, snow, you bury the axle, you bury your truck. Safe winching techniques and how to winch yourself out so that you're not putting yourself at risk or danger. Winching can be extremely dangerous, or when that cable snaps, it could kill you. So understanding the load factors and some of the concepts of how maybe setting up your bug out vehicle or setting up your ATV for doing recovery, hopefully this will make sense to you. When we start out, we're going to look at the types of recovery. You have self and, which is you with your own winch, you with your own people in the vehicle trying to get the tires undone. You also have like what I'm going to use as the term wrecker, using additional equipment, a secondary vehicle with a winch, a specific like tow truck if you want to consider that, with a winch or a heavy cable, something that's going to use another, use more force. One of the factors that we're going to talk about, or the main factor, is called mire. So mire is the factor of how stuck you are, and the factor comes in sets of threes, 1 through 3. It's going to determine how much weight is on the vehicle. So you have your vehicle. Let's say you have a 5,000-pound Chevy Silverado, right? You got it stuck, but you're also bugging out. So you have the bed loaded. You have 4 passengers. You have everything in the back. So you have an additional 3,000 pounds. You're going to take that total weight and enter this into this ratio. So let's say you were going across a field to get around a roadblock, and you buried the truck right up to the hub of the axle, right up to the hub. So that factor is going to be a 1. So 1 to 1, right? So when you're taking that weight of the vehicle, so let's say a total weight right now is 5,000. We're going to multiply it against 1, and that's your total weight of pull. So 5,000 pounds, right? It gets a little worse when you have 2, mire factor level 2. So you're going to go, your truck is now stuck. It's up to the fender, but not over the fender. So you're up to the fenders. You stuck it way past the wheels. Now you're actually suctioning pretty much the bottom of that truck right to the ground. So that mud and suction factor increases the weight of the vehicle that you're going to need to pull by a factor of 2. Excuse me. And the worst factor is mire 3, is when you stuck it past the fender, hood, roof. You've buried this vehicle. Well, at factor 3, now you're going to go times 3. So that 5,000 pounds now turned into 15,000 pounds of what pull force you're going to need. So when you start factoring in the pull force needed and the weight in there, so that's the first thing that you're going to look at. So take your weight of your vehicle, take the weight of what your load's going to be, and then start factoring it in. I think a good winch capability should at least minimally be at least double what your vehicle weight with load should be to be safe. Because you can use snatch blocks, which I'll describe in a little bit later, to make mechanical advantage. But if you can actually get away with having 3 times the force, that makes it really easy. It's just you hook up a single pull, which we'll describe in a minute, and you can pull safely out of your point. We're going to talk about types of pull. So you have self pull, a 1 to 1, which is basically you, a tree or an anchor point, and just you and the tree and the winch. So it's you have the winch going off the truck, anchored to the tree. We're going to factor this as a mire 2. The weight at this point doesn't matter in this, so it's 1 to 1. So you're not using any mechanical advantage at this point. And so basically, if you had a 5,000 pound winch and you were stuck at a mire level 2, your winch is now pulling about 10,000 pounds, and potentially the cable will snap or the winch will fail. So what you could do is you take a snatch block, which I don't have one here, but what a snatch block would do, and it's kind of a crude drawing, but the snatch block allows the cable, or a simple explanation would be a pulley. So the pulley, you have a cable go from the truck to the snatch block and back to the winch, or you anchor back to the truck. And what you're doing is you're reducing the amount of mechanical advantage, or you're reducing the amount of pull. Because instead of 5,000, or we were saying this was 5,000, so 2, so 10. Well, now this is just a 5,000 pound pull, because it's 2 to 1. It's actually pretty efficient. You can even do additional things. You can add a second snatch block and do a 3 to 1 pull, which gets a little kind of complicated and kind of unnecessary in my opinion. But having a truck or having your winch set up where you have a snatch block and you can keep it in the back seat, it gives you, or the ATV or any of these things, it gives you the ability to have additional recovery skills. It gives you the ability to have additional ability to, when you're pulling, it makes you a lot more efficient. It also increases the amount of weight that you can pull from. So hopefully that makes sense. Things that I would recommend too for equipment, you're gonna look at gloves, chains, cable, and snatch block. Gloves are important. You don't want to be handling cable without gloves. A lot of cables fray and it can sliver you and can cut you. I've even seen a chain where the chain had a burr on it. One of the guys flayed his hand open when the chain caught him. Gloves are important. Like we were saying before, the snatch block, which is essentially just a pulley that attaches to an anchor point. And then additionally, hang on one second. So I'm gonna grab this. So we're talking about safety. One of the biggest safety issues you have is when you're hooking up with hooks, right? A common mistake would be having the throat, which is this part, facing down. You don't want the bottom of this facing down, because if this throat or this chain snaps or the hook breaks, instead of going, it's gonna basically go with it. So it's gonna go up and towards you. Versus if you had it down, when it snaps, it's gonna pretty much aim towards the ground. It's gonna hit the ground first. And remember, so let's say you have a factor of 10,000 pounds, right? You're doing a 1-to-1 pull, you have 10,000 pounds on this line, you have 10,000 pounds of force on this when it snaps. And it can come at you, it'll kill you. Another danger point is pretty much anything within this range, like in a circumference up here, because if it does snap, it's gonna come flying back. It can snap to the right or left. Excuse me. It can come back. So a lot of people with the truck, like doing pickup truck kind of things, sometimes they put their hood up so that if it does snap, it's gonna hit the hood too. It's gonna hit the hood of the truck instead of going through the windshield. I've seen one off-roading experience where basically the driver was killed because the hook came straight through the windshield and killed the guy. But the big thing I would tell you is always have the throat facing up, because at least if it snaps, the hook's gonna go into the ground versus coming up in the air and coming back at you. That is one of the major points of this. So, I got a cold, so kind of sucks. What I'm gonna actually give you too is when you're picking out the winch, make sure that the cable and everything else is rated for it. Cable maintenance is important. At least once a year that you're gonna do the cable maintenance. It's basically just oiling the chain or oiling the cable. And what you're gonna do is you're gonna anchor point it slowly with load on it, back the vehicle out all the way, take a wire brush, clean all the dirt, clean all the old stuff out, and then take a rag with oil and kind of soak down the cable. Then, while it's still anchor pointed, because you want load on it as you're pulling out, and you want load as you're pulling in. So as you're pulling in, you're gonna want load. So a lot of things people don't understand is that you need load when you're pulling that winch back in. They just let the winch kind of come back in on its own. If you do that, you wind up seeing a bird's nest kind of inside the winch cable on the drum. Don't do that. It ruins the cable. You just basically could destroy hundreds of dollars worth of your winch cable, and now it's frayed and ruined and cracked. Two, let's see if I can draw it. One of the things too, when you're looking at your winch cable, so this is your cable. If you start seeing strands all over the place, or you see kind of a bind any chunks missing out of the cable, replace it. It's time to cut it. I mean, you've heard the term, the weakest link in the chain. Don't, that's true with cable too. And then, so if you're looking at this, and this is your drum, so you're looking at basically as it goes around, you got wraps. As it goes around, it's gonna make nice even wraps, and then it's gonna come up and make more wraps that are clean on top. For the max, for just getting on the technical side of it, if you take and you're gonna pull at the max force, you pretty much want the whole winch cable pulled out except for the last part. You want to use all the cable you can, because the more wraps that go around that drum kind of reduce the percentage of that drum's the winch's pulling power. It's kind of a moot point because it's getting a little overcomplicated, but anyways, I hope this makes sense. Take what you got here. If you need any help with it, I'm more than willing to show it to you. This is kind of a quick run through on recovery operations as far as getting stuck, and believe me, I've gotten stuff stuck plenty of times. It's just being safe about it and actually understanding some of the numbers is important. Yeah, so any of this could be 4-wheel drive or 2-wheel drive too. Everybody gets stuck. So anyways, well, thank you. Oh God. Did it?